my goodness, everyone. Hello! I know that took me forever if you've been following along on our technical adventure today. Let me tell you, Miss Kate is technically challenged, apparently. Extremely technically challenged on her end. But if you've been following us along, I have been trying to show you all Sock Pal, and I'm just so happy you can hear me right now, and we've got a talkie. We finally moved successfully past having just black and white films. We moved past silent film, and now we have talkies. Now you can hear me. It's wonderful. I won't try to take up extra of your time today because I knew you were all there with me at 3:30, so I won't make you stay extra just because I've been having problems. But if you missed what I was saying before, I'm going to be redoing a lot of what I did, so again, so I'm not too scared of redoing some of these steps. But what I did before is I turned my sock inside out so that it could be flat, and then I sewed a double line of a running stitch back and forth right here on through both sides of the material, so that right now I have a completed sock. There's no holes in the sock at all. And in order to turn my sock back right side out, what I need to do is cut a hole. Now, it would be very silly to cut a hole right where I just sewed my line. Otherwise, why did I do that? So that's got to mean that I got to cut the other side, right? So what I do is I just snip off the top part where your toesies go, right here on my little sock pal. Just the very top, very quickly. Goodbye. And now I have a hole, so I can turn my sock pal back right side out. Ta-da! And you can see because I did that double stitch, I have a very, very nice close knit right here. Nothing is hanging loose. But since I wasn't able to show you all with sound how to do a running stitch the first time, I'm going to teach you how to do it this time. So first, what I'm going to do is make little arms for my sock pal, and all I do is I just roll that up, and I take my needle, which I've hidden in my hair, and first things first, I'm going to create a knot. So I insert my thread first, my needle and thread first through there, and then since I double knotted both sides of my thread on this side, I'm going to create a knot just by pulling my thread through that hole. Doop, 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 doop. All right, we got a knot. And now I'm going to just do the running stitch again, but I'll be able to show you it properly this time. So running stitch is going to be up and down like a dolphin, but you want to go through both sides of the material. So as long as you keep up that movement throughout the entire time, I'm doing something a little different. I'm looping my stitches for these arms just because that's a bit of a better stitch when it comes to this particular work. But that running stitch is very popular for sewing on patches, sewing holes together, darning holes, excuse me, that's the proper terminology. I know that. And you all might see that I'm a bit of a fast hand sewer, and that's just because I've been hand sewing since I was itty bitty, because my mom used to knit and crochet, and she taught me how to hand sew so that I could darn my own clothing, fix up my own clothing. And also, it's an extremely good skill to have if you're an actor, since actors have to deal with costuming a lot. And sometimes the costumer isn't always available for you, and you can do that easy fix yourself, although I would always ask before you do anything to a costume and check with your costuming team first, because they might chew off your head, because you might be doing something completely wrong with your costume that they did not ask for, and they are the final authority in theater when it comes to costumes and what you wear. So I'm just looping my hands together, and then I can properly show you that running stitch when I attach the arms to the body. Alrighty, so let's do this all over again. I'll teach you how to thread a needle. You do want a longer piece of string. And on all needles, there will be this hole in it. And what you want to do is you want to take your thread and insert the thread through the hole. So your needle hangs just like that. And then you want to make sure that both sides of the thread are even. And you can tie a knot. Alrighty. And then I'm going to put my arm where I want it to go. And to start the first attachment, what I'm going to do is that same knotting process where I go in between my two pieces of thread that I have attached together right there, and just create a knot. And now the running stitch. You're going to watch my little needle pop up and down along this line. And it's so that the arm can attach to the body. And sometimes you want to go along that line twice just to create a more secure connection. I like to go over it twice. I'm already here sewing it, might as well, right? It doesn't hurt. And then I want to tie everything off at the end like I have before with that loop that I create. And then I just cut the thread. And I have an arm. And I'm going to repeat that on the other side. Now, you don't have to create arms for your sock pal like mine. It might just be a potato. You might just want your sock pal to be a potato. And that is completely valid. I like potatoes. They're one of my favorite vegetables. And so I'm going to attach his arm at the same height on the other side. All I can say, friends, is Miss Kate is very glad she is done with most of her technical issues. So hopefully I shouldn't be dropping out or missing any more of our playful learning hours together or having any more audio issues. I'm stressed out. You see all this blonde hair up here? It's not because I dyed it. It's because I'm stressing myself out to that point where my hair is just turning white. Sometimes it's good to laugh at things that kind of frustrate you to make yourself feel better about it. Because there's nothing I can do about it now. It's in the past. It is what it is. And we've moved past that, hopefully. I hope that I have no more technical issues that I have to suffer through with you guys. Alrighty, so let me show you my little sock pal with his two attached arms. Oh, woo! And then what I like to do is I grab a couple squares of stuffing and I kind of bunch them up or roll them up into a tube. And I start inserting it into my sock pal. And this is how you're gonna control your sock pal shape. You're going to want to stuff your sock pal in a way where you like the way that they are shaped. If you don't, just play around with it. Keep adjusting. Keep going. This is going to be completely personalized to yourself. All right. Okay. Well, this one's certainly starting to look like a ghosty, which I'm quite enjoying. You know, I was able to get a shape where the head is a little bit smaller than the bottom half of the body. And now I'm going to teach you all how to, your second stitch of the day. just thread your needle the same way. Just half and half. I'll have to do another sewing class with you all, and maybe I'll bring a small pile of things that I've been meaning to mend, and I'll show you how to sew on a button. I'll show you how to sew on a patch or darn a hole if you happen to have a hole in something. Maybe we'll get even fancier than that. Who knows? But you want to create your loop just as before. So we can have that knot right at the area of the final stitch. Okie dokie. And now you're going to do that same movement, that up and down dolphin movement, but instead of going through two pieces of fabric, we're just going to go through the singular piece of fabric right here, and we're going to go all the way around the circle. Now, the instructions tell you only to do this one time. However, I have found through my experience, through making a couple handful of sock pals, that if you go twice, it's actually better, so that your sewing can be a little bit more precise. And as you can see, as I keep going around and around my sock pal and pulling my thread, it's starting to get tighter and tighter in there. I'm starting to close the circle a little bit more whenever I pull on the thread. And that's exactly the sort of movement we are looking for. Just around and around, the merry-go-round we go. I'm actually thinking of making a handful of these as holiday gifts this year, because I love making homemade gifts. And I really dislike giving people gifts that end up being more of a nuisance than a gift to them. So instead of stuffing it with this foam that I have this idea of stuffing it instead with some rice so that you can microwave it and it can be a nice hot compress. And also maybe a little bit of some essential oil will get dropped in there so that it smells good. But I just pulled my stitches closer and closer together, and you should get this lovely little ruching at the bottom. And that's your sock pal, my friends. That's all the stitching that you need to learn for your sock pal. And then now it's just about notions. It's about decorating our fun friends right here. So I'm going to grab some googly eyes. That's what I'm going to work with first, I think. Actually, no. You know what? I am going to reattach my leg onto my cat while I have some extra thread hanging around here. And then I'll get started decorating. But pretty much after that, friends, you have learned all you needed from me to make those sock pals. You're going to just be doing different variations of those stitches in order to connect your different parts of the bodies that you want together, or connect any notions on top of your sock pal. That's how you're going to attach it with a needle and thread in particular. But there's always that handy-dandy tool called the hot glue gun. However, as always, since it is dealing with heat, and as we know, heat can hurt, you want to be very, very careful with a hot glue gun, because even Miss Kate has burned herself quite a few times on the hot glue gun. And let me tell you now, it's not fun. It was not fun, friends. Nope. Did not have a good time. So be very, very careful of your very sensitive digits. And I'm sorry that you can't see some of my sewing. I like to sew in my lap sometimes because I get a little bit more, I can brace it against something since I only have two hands. And teaching a class yesterday, we were able to explore how difficult it is to complete certain tasks with only two hands. You know, sometimes it would be really nice if you had a few more in there to help you out. So while we were making robots by ourselves, we learned that with robots in particular, sometimes it might be more helpful if we had more hands, so it could be a more collaborative activity than an isolating activity. So I was able to restitch on my leg. As you can see, that's made a big difference here for my little kitty cat, which is super, super fun. So I've got our kitty cat over here. We've got our little lovely friend over here. I actually might make this into a secondary cat. And the way that I did that last time, that was super easy. Remember this top that we cut off of the sock? All I do is I cut that in half. And that gives me a fun little triangle shape. And then all I do is I connect it with a running stitch at the top of the head. So let me just knot my string here. Oh, that's no good. And we're going to start sewing on the first ear. Now, you do want to make sure that all of your kind of knots and stitching is all on one side, not both sides of the animal, especially if you want to hide any of your stitching. So I'm facing most of my knotting and stuff towards the back of the animal. And I am now just going to use a small running stitch to attach my little kitty's ears on. And we're going to go along this line twice. Now, if you have a sewing machine at home, yes, you can do this much, much faster than I am right now. And you're also going to be able to create some very pretty straight lines with your sewing machine. And that's why innovation, when it comes to technology, is important. It's always good to know the original way and the original iterations of some of these machines that we take for granted nowadays, and compare them to what the original idea was. The sewing machine came to being because people wanted to sew faster and in straighter lines than you can when you're hand sewing. It's just going to take a longer time. That's just the truth. Because it's a skill. Luckily, with a sewing machine, you don't have to have too much skill to learn how to operate that machine properly. That was the nice thing about the sewing machine. The sewing machine allowed more people to complete the same task, even if they didn't have the skills or a year's worth of practice to do so. That's not even to mention the fact that most machinery during that time was meant for smaller hands, so sometimes, unfortunately, there were children who were forced to work in these places. But research a little history on that. I won't get into how sad that story is here today with all of you, since I only have 4 minutes left today. And I'm sorry for all of our difficulties, but I'm glad you stuck around. Here is my white cat sock pal, and here is my black cat sock pal. And they were made by using two different stitching styles. One is going to be a running stitch where it looks like a dolphin going up and down, and that goes through two pieces of material. While the pulling stitch that we used at the very end, the ruching stitch, we just went through one side of material, but the movement is the same. It's that same sort of up and down like a dolphin in relatively even increments, and that's how you get that closure at the bottom. Then to do all this extra fun stuff, I just used the extra material that I had left over from the sock parts that I cut off. So the arms were made from the ankle part of the sock. The ears of my cat were made out of the toe part of the sock. And then I use some fluffy stuffing to stuff them on the inside. And if you don't have any fluffy stuffing yourself, do not worry. You can use whatever you can find around your house. Maybe that's some old rags. Maybe that's a newspaper. I actually have an old stuffed animal that my aunt made many years ago. And that's what the turtle is stuffed with, is just different colorful rags, scraps of fabric that her mom had lying around after she made what she needed to make sure that they could have some money. And then after that step, once you have all of that sewing done for your body, you're going to just add different notions on top of it to create fun faces or outfits, all sorts of different things. But I want to thank you all for staying with me through this very troublesome Playful Learning stream today. I'm sorry that it's shorter than usual because of all of our technical difficulties. But we will be back next Tuesday with Michael and Robert. I cannot wait to see what they teach us next. And then next week, what I'm going to teach all of you, we're going to stay within this realm and idea of sewing. So I hope you can, in the meantime, while you have a week to gather your materials, gather some extra string and thread for me, because what I'm going to teach you all next week, we're going to go a hair more advanced when it comes to sewing stuff, and we're going to make ourselves a cardboard loom. So the only materials you need is some masking tape, some scissors, some cardboard, and some colorful string. You can find some at the dollar store nearby you. Maybe your responsible adult around has something fun around for you. And I would go hunting at those after Halloween sales, friends. That's happening this Saturday, so happy Halloween to all of you who celebrate Halloween. I'll be going through a pumpkin patch myself, and I'll have on some fun Halloween costumes, so much so that I've actually planned 2 for the day, so Miss Kate is going above and beyond. But after that, check out those after Halloween sales and see what fun little crafting materials you can gather for yourselves, because we're going to be using all different sorts of things to create some fun activities, and hopefully, maybe if you like any of these playful learning activities we make with you here, you can use that idea and do it again, and maybe create some very cool homemade gifts for your family this holiday season. Well, that's it for me, for Kate, for this Friday. Thank you so much from the 2-Bit Circus Foundation to all of you for hanging out with me here today. I adore you all. Next week, there will be less problems. Miss Kate will have her hat on straight. She'll have this well lit. She'll have more art to show you. She'll actually give you a proper tour of her creative space next week, now that she's figured out you can hear her, which is very important. So I adore you all. I hope you have a good rest of your week. Again, happy Halloween, my spooky friends, and happy Thursday.